This should be the time of year when presidential policy wonks are all at Twitter with excitement and living in their little cocoon dream world of hammering away at what each candidate promises they will do when actually handed the keys to the executive washroom. But in reality, they're all standing on the GOP sidelines at the moment trying to figure out how to get their comments out while dodging the mud that seems to be exactly what certain candidates and the public are demanding to hear. So let's see if this standard of an election season can be resurrected. Our guest was the policy director for the Romney-Ryan 2012 presidential campaign and most recently, policy advisor to Marco Rubio's effort, research fellow at the Hoover Institution. Welcome Lanhee Chen to the Hard Line. Lanhee, thanks so much for joining us. So let's get right to policy and what I just alluded to, because right now we hear insults, rigging, fixing, screaming, hollering back and forth. We hear zero, really zero, about policy right now on the GOP side. So from what you've learned and what you can maybe put an arm around some of these people and give them some advice, how do you get your policy out there when it seems no one gives a damn about hearing about it?
Well, Ed, I think your assessment is absolutely right. Unfortunately, a lot of people have absolutely no interest in hearing about the substance. But look, I think it's actually crucially important. The case I make is that if you look at Hillary Clinton as the likely Democratic nominee, she's got some real weaknesses. Now, some of those weaknesses are character weaknesses and ethics weaknesses, but a lot of them are policy weaknesses. And unless you're willing to articulate what you're for and also where she's weak, I think it's going to be a real lost opportunity to define this election. So I would hope that they see it as an opportunity to get votes in November rather than maybe what they're looking at directly in front of them now.
Now, you opened the door here with Hillary Clinton. I'm going to come back to the GOP in a moment, but I think that's fair game right here because Hillary Clinton, one of the economists at the University of Chicago and a former Obama White House Council of Economic Advisors was quoted as calling Bernie Sanders' agenda magic flying puppies with winning lotto tickets tied to their collars. Well, but isn't it fair to say that if you look at Hillary Clinton's foreign policy, I mean, those magic flying puppies start showing up by the dozens?
Well, that's right. I mean, people forget that Hillary Clinton was at the center of so many failed Obama-era foreign policy decisions. If you look at the reset with Russia, which was a failure, that was her idea. If you look at the failure to act decisively in Syria, she was partially responsible for that. The intervention in Libya, she was responsible for that. Our failure to be able to contain what's going on in North Korea, she was partially responsible for that as well. So if you look across the globe at her foreign policy record, she's got problems. And going forward, no one's held her responsible for saying what she would do as president. And I think Republicans and others should do that.
Let's then talk about Bernie Sanders and the opposition, but specifically Bernie Sanders right here, to get at Hillary Clinton. Foreign policy is one of the toughest things for people to understand. Quite frankly, people's heads start to swim when they hear about it. But what we hear right now is a lot of fear. This one's going to die, bombs are going to go off here, things are going to be done. There's no substance behind it. With your opinion then, how does Bernie Sanders and those on the GOP side attack Hillary Clinton in foreign policy? Her weakest point, her Achilles heel, make it stick and make people care and see what a real disaster she is.
You know, Ed, here's the basic point. If you look at the last 7 or 8 years of the Obama presidency, there is no place in the world where America's interests have been advanced since Barack Obama took office. There is not a single part of the world where America has more prestige, where America has more strength, and that is due in no small part to Hillary Clinton, who served as Obama's Secretary of State. So when they make the case about Hillary Clinton's weaknesses as a candidate, what they have to remember is that she is the one who is largely responsible for the failures of the Obama administration on foreign policy. And I think a failure to do that, a failure to identify her failures, is a real missed opportunity.
Okay, then let's look at the GOP side. I got about a minute left here and go right back to where I started. No one seems to be listening right now in all the discourse that's going on, and we are running headlong into what's going to be a contested, difficult, very emotional convention. How then does Ted Cruz, Governor Kasich, how do they get it across? How do they push policy in there to make people care and gloss over everything else they're hearing?
Well, part of it is articulating a bigger vision about what they want to do as president, and you can't do that without policy. You know, Ted Cruz has put some interesting ideas out there with a simpler tax code, for example, getting rid of Obamacare. Governor Kasich has a couple of ideas as well. They should be coming back to those ideas and saying to people, look, if I'm president, here are the 4 or 5 things you can expect from me on day one. and just give people a clear sense of what the differences are between them, Donald Trump, and Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders, because I think the American people at core do want to see those differences.
I got about 20 seconds left. When you look at what's going on right now, do you, as somebody who's been around policy and campaigns, just shake your head and go, what is happening here?
It is like nothing I've ever seen before, Ed, and it is a bit confusing to somebody who's been involved in politics for a while. But buckle up and hold on. We've got some exciting times ahead.
If it's confusing to people like you, imagine what it's like to Joe and Jane beer cans sitting out in their porch right now, going, "What are we looking at?" Lanhee, I guarantee you're coming back on this show because we got a lot to do before we head towards November, my friend, and it's more about policy than anything else. Thanks so much for your time. Now, the RNC boss is asking one candidate, give it a rest. Another candidate won't rest in seeking big bucks, and the candidate who wants the nation to rest easy, hey, don't worry, $10 trillion in taxes later. It's the political animal coming up next, right here on The Hard Line.